watch this video until the very end, especially if you're in your 20s, because I truly believe this will transform you from deep within. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to read Surah Al-Kahf every single week. And whenever there is repetition that is emphasized in Islam, there's always many wisdoms behind it. And of the wisdoms is the story of the people of the cave, which is the very first story mentioned in this beautiful, incredible chapter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces the story by saying, إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. Remember when those youths, fitya, Allah refers to the people by their youth. And he said, remember when these youths, they took refuge in the cave and they called out to Allah saying, our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us rightly through our affairs. Essentially, what happened was these youths were living in a society which was run by an oppressive king who was out to kill them just because they believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and wanted to stick to the halal. Holding onto their deen became incredibly difficult. The people were against them, the king was against them, and he was out to kill them. But instead of the youth folding and going back to their old ways just to avoid death, they held on to Islam like nothing else. And Allah praises these people by their youthhood for holding on to that, and then He is about to unfold the story in such an incredible way that's going to open your eyes. And so these youths, when they ran to the cave and made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah made something incredibly special happen. فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. So we caused them to fall into a dead sleep for many years. Essentially, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made those youths who went to the cave to sleep for 300 years. A miracle. Laws of physics broken. Why? Just because those people decided to stick to Islam, to stick to Allah over everyone and anyone else that tried to threaten them. You see? So because of their iman, Allah made the unnatural happen, which is He made them sleep for 300 years. But it doesn't stop there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He then continues and He says, وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهِ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that whilst they were asleep for 300 years, every morning the sun would rise from the east, Allah would bend the light rays away from the cave so it does not fall onto their faces and wake them up. And then when it sets in the west, Allah bends the light rays again away from them just to protect them from waking up from their sleep. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again is bending, changing the laws of physics to protect these youth who decided to give up their will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despite everyone being against them. ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. That is one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to guide is truly guided. But whoever Allah leaves astray, you will never find for them anyone to guide them. But it doesn't stop there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and He says, وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and you would have thought that they were awake if you were to pass by them, but they're actually asleep. And we turn them over left and right throughout their sleep. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do that? Because as you know, if they're going to be sleeping for 300 years and they stay in the same position, this is going to destroy their bodies. And so throughout this 300-year sleep, Allah caused them to turn left and right in their sleep to keep their body moving and to keep it safe and protected. Again, breaking the laws of physics for them. But it continues again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He then says, وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ لَوِ اطَّلَعْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ لَوَلَّيْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِرَارًا وَلَمُلِئْتَ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا. And in front of them was a dog who stretched his legs at the entrance. And had you looked at them if you were to pass by, you would have certainly run away because your hearts would be filled with terror and horror. Subhanallah. So not only has Allah created this reality where the sun rays are bending away from the cave just to not wake them up, and He's causing them to flip around as they sleep for 300 years, Allah also placed a dog at the mouth of the entrance which had its legs spread out, which looked terrifying for any passerbyers, so that if they walked past and they saw these people sleeping, they would just run away instead of waking them up from their sleep. And they would never mention it to anyone because of the fear that Allah cast in their hearts. Now comes the time when these youths wake up. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. And so we awakened them so that they might question one another. How long did we sleep? Some of them said for a day, some of them said part of a day. They had no idea. And so just really reflect on the reality that these youths dedicated their lives to Allah, seeking protection in Him, and Allah caused all of these miracles to happen around them and they didn't even know. So if you do the same, what do you think Allah is doing behind the scenes and blessing you with without you even realizing or knowing yourself? But anyway, after they started guessing, one of them, they actually suggested to go back to the town and to buy some food and come back because they were very, very hungry. And so when they went, or one of them went, to find some food, and the people of the new town 300 years later saw that they had the old coins, they had signs of old clothes, and they spoke about the old king to them, they realized these people are from the past. And so these very youths who held on to Islam, who ran away seeking Allah's protection, became a sign, a da'wah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used them to prove His existence, to prove His deen to the entire generation that was there in that city. Subhanallah. They just did one thing. They just took one step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They just held on to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah caused so many miracles to happen in their life. Some of them they didn't even realize, and one of them where they ended up being used as a form of da'wah for an entire generation. You see? So this story is so symbolic, because what's Allah going to do for you if you give up your life for Him, if you do anything to stick to the halal and avoid the haram despite all the fitna that surrounds you, at university, at school, in the workplace, wherever you are. If you're surrounded with fitna and you choose to stick to the halal no matter what, and you're in your youth particularly, Allah is going to do wonders for you and protect you in incredible ways, move the laws of physics without you even realizing, before giving you eternity of perfection and joy in the next life. You see how powerful this story is? You see how powerful Surah Al-Kahf is? So not only should you make sure to read it every single week, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strongly recommends, but also for you to stick to Islam with everything you have until the very last breath that you have. Fulfill your obligations, pray 5 times a day, put that hijab on, have good character, learn about your deen, do everything you can to just dedicate your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you take that one step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, filling your heart with taqwa, Allah is going to come back to you with wonders that are just going to shock you day after day, year after year. Jazakumullah khairan.